I currently work at a Dollar Tree. For anyone who doesn't know, this is a dollar store. Actually, the one I work at is $1.25 5, but you get the point. This event took place 2 months ago. I'm a female and a part-time employee. I work all kinds of different shifts, and it's pretty random. It's really whenever I'm needed. Sometimes I work mornings, other times I work into the night. I'm also trained to do multiple things in the store, like being a cashier and doing other tasks. One day I was working a Saturday shift from 1 p.m. until 9 p.m. When I got to work, I was a cashier for a while, but only for the first couple of hours. For the next part of my shift, we had 2 other employees working, so they took over the registers, and I did some other tasks. We were kind of busy, but the store was not too crowded. Around 4 p.m., I had a bad interaction with a man who entered the store. I had been stocking a shelf in the back for maybe 5 minutes, then started walking away when I was done. As I was walking down an aisle near a back corner, there was a man standing there. I didn't really notice him until he stopped me when I was walking past. He said that he needed help with something at first, but it didn't take long before he started saying some inappropriate things to me. He basically tried to pick me up, but I wasn't interested. I tried to shake it off, but he continued talking. It was making me uncomfortable, and I told him to stop. The man was pretty short, had dark hair, and was somewhat skinny. I didn't feel too much in danger because there were other people in the store, and my coworkers were there as well. I started walking away from the guy, but he began to follow me. He was walking and still talking, but quietly now. He was telling me not to walk away from him and asking me what my problem was. I walked over to a coworker, and the man continued. I told the man to stop, louder now, and told him to leave me alone. When he did not go away, my coworker got involved. At this point, the man finally left and walked out of the store. I was really glad he was gone. Every now and then we get really strange customers, but I had never dealt with anything like that before. I really couldn't believe it. After that, I went back to work and continued. The next few hours went by really well. I went back to the cashier for a couple of hours and then switched with the other employee. By now, I was almost off. I had less than an hour to go in my shift, and it was 8-something at night. The store was much quieter now, and I headed to organize some shelves. One thing about our store is that many of the shelves get extremely disorganized. I don't know why this is, but I enjoy reorganizing everything and making it look nice. It's something we usually only do when the store is really quiet. So I walked to this far back corner of the store. The aisle was empty, and there were a lot of things needing to be organized. I started on one of the shelves. I was maybe 2 or 3 minutes in when I heard something to my right. There were these 2 kind of large boxes in the aisle. I'm not sure exactly what had been in them, maybe a bunch of toy balls or something like that, but they were almost empty. I looked over and saw the same man from earlier emerging from one of those boxes. I couldn't believe my eyes. He had been hiding inside of it, but before I could do anything, the man jumped out of the box, all while looking right at me. He then started to walk towards me, and I moved away. The guy had to be insane or something. I backed away but was now in the complete corner of the store. I asked the guy what he was doing. He did not say anything but kept moving closer. There were a bunch of shopping baskets stacked nearby, and I grabbed one of them. As the man got within 5 feet of me, I used it as a shield in case he kept coming closer. He got within a few feet, and I held out the basket. I told him very loudly to leave me alone, and he told me to be quiet. I was hoping that my coworker could hear me. The man was still standing there with just a shopping basket between us. He asked me to leave the store with him, and I said no. As he continued to try to persuade me, I heard my coworker approaching. When she entered the aisle, the man told her to go away. My coworker then threatened to call the police. The man took a few steps away from me and towards my coworker. We both told him to leave over and over. Finally, the man walked out of the store. He walked along the sidewalk out front and then went out of sight. Of course, we were both worried that he would come back or was waiting for us outside. My coworker watched by the door, and I went around the store and realized that there were no other shoppers inside. We decided to lock the doors then and close early to be safe. We called the police, and they came out, and we told them everything about the guy. They looked around a little bit, but he was gone. After that, both of us went home. We also reported the man to our other coworkers, and he got banned from the store. Luckily, I haven't seen him since, and I'm hoping that he never comes back. This happened about 3 weeks ago. It was morning, and my girlfriend Alyssa and I were going on a day trip about 2 hours away. But shortly after we left, maybe 5 minutes into the drive, Alyssa remembered something and asked me to stop. There was a Dollar Tree right off the road coming up, so I pulled off. We were in an area with quite a few stores, but I thought the Dollar Tree would be the fastest, so I pulled into the parking lot and parked right in front of the building. Alyssa said she would just run inside quickly and be right back, so I stayed in the car and kept it running while she went in. I guessed she would be out within 2 or 3 minutes, since she only had to get one thing. So I sat there and looked around the parking lot. It was a beautiful sunny day and everything seemed calm. However, within probably 30 seconds, I noticed the automatic doors of the Dollar Tree opening. A man walked out wearing a backwards baseball hat and started walking on the sidewalk in front of the store. He put a cigarette in his mouth and then looked over at me as he passed by my car. Instead of continuing to walk down the sidewalk, the man stopped and headed over towards me. I had a bad feeling when I saw this. I didn't know what this man could possibly want. He went right up to my driver's window, and I rolled it down about halfway. The man asked me if I had some money for him or if I would give him a ride. I told the guy no, I was in a hurry. The man did not respond, but then tried opening my driver's door. Luckily, it was locked. Now, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I rolled my window back up, but I couldn't drive away because Alyssa was still inside. I was hoping she would come out soon. The man stayed by my driver's door and started knocking on the window almost as soon as I had closed it. I told the man to go away, but he didn't. The guy started getting a bit aggressive, calling me names and telling me to come out of the car. I tried to just ignore it. Then, the man punched my window. Luckily, it didn't break or anything. Just after this, I saw the doors of the Dollar Tree open out of the corner of my eye. I looked over, and Alyssa was walking out. She began walking to my car, but I saw the man finally leave my car only to start approaching her. I didn't know what he was planning to do. If he was going to try to ask her for money as well, or what, but I didn't want him going near her. I opened up my driver's door and left the car. I shouted to the man to come back, and I may have called him a name as well. He stopped approaching Alyssa, who was about halfway to the car and now probably very confused. He turned around and started walking back over to me. The man looked angry but almost happy. It was like he was looking forward to fighting me. As he approached, I told Alyssa to get in the car. I sprinted back around to my driver's door and got inside while the man chased after me. Alyssa sprinted to the passenger side door and got inside easily. After we both made it in, we locked our doors, and the man was now directly in front of my car, about to reach my driver's door. I was able to lock it just in time, and after the man tried the door, he started to repeatedly punch my window. I quickly put the car into reverse, backed away, and then left the parking lot. The man tried chasing after us on foot, but we easily outran him. Alyssa asked me what on earth that was all about. I told her the story, and then she called the police, reporting the whole incident. We were told that an officer would go to the Dollar Tree and look for the man. Then we went on with our drive. Looking back at that moment, we came extremely close to the man possibly trying to attack one of us. I feel very lucky to have escaped. Sure, maybe I could have taken him in a fight, but that's just not a situation I wanted to be in. Hopefully, that man didn't bother anybody else. There's a local dollar store in my neighborhood that's pretty close to my apartment. It's closer to my place than other stores like Target, Walmart, or grocery stores, so I used to go there all the time. I would say I was there twice a week at least to get whatever I needed. It would take like 2 or 3 minutes to drive there from my place. The store was like most dollar stores and was somewhat small. It usually wasn't that busy either, which was also nice. One evening, I went to the dollar store to get a few things. I walked inside, and like normal, it wasn't that busy. There were just a few people here and there shopping throughout the store. I began looking for the first thing I was going to buy when a woman approached me. This woman had dark hair and was short, and she wore glasses and a black coat. After approaching me, she said she saw me in here all the time. I said yes, I did shop there quite a bit. The woman then described some things that I usually bought. She said how she always saw me get the off-brand Gatorade and the one brand of chips that I always got. This seemed kind of weird to me. I mean, how closely was she watching me to memorize all this stuff? I just said yes and sort of laughed it off. The conversation ended shortly after with the woman saying she would see me later and then walking away. I continued my shopping and did not see the lady until almost the end of my trip. When I was almost done, I remember being in an aisle and randomly looking out. I saw the woman walking by to another aisle and filming me with her phone. She was trying to hide it, but doing a terrible job. I could see the phone pointed right at me. The woman did not look at me and walked past, but then she started looking at a product on a shelf about 20 feet away from me. Even though she was looking at some items and not in my direction, she kept her phone facing me the entire time. I was so confused, and I thought about confronting her, but instead, I decided to just check out and leave. When I started walking away, I saw the woman angle her phone to keep it on me as I walked. When I looked over, she finally quickly moved it away. Once more, I thought about confronting her, but decided not to. As weird as this was, it didn't bother me too much as long as something like this didn't happen again. I headed up, paid for my items, and then left the store. The woman did not follow me or anything and was still inside when I left. After getting out of the dollar store, I headed back home. It was probably just 2 or 3 days later that I was at the store again. I had sort of forgotten about the woman, and this time when I shopped there, I don't remember noticing her at all. But the next time I was there, she was back again. This was maybe a few days after that, so roughly a week after our last interaction. It was a little bit later at night, and the dollar store was very quiet. When I walked in, I did not see the lady inside at all. I was able to go around the store and get the items I wanted to buy. When I was near the front end of the store, though, I noticed something out the front windows. The windows looked out to the parking lot, and you could see a good amount of it. There were maybe 3 or 4 cars in the entire lot. I saw the same woman from before standing next to my car, and she appeared to be either filming it or taking pictures of it. She was clearly holding her phone right up next to it. She also got my license plates. When I saw this, I decided to leave. I checked out and kept an eye on the woman the whole time. I watched her try to open one of the doors to my car, but it was locked. Then I left the store. As soon as I made it out of the doors, I just barely saw the woman go behind another nearby car in the parking lot. When I reached my car, I called out to her, asking what she was doing near my vehicle. I got no response. I knew that the woman was hiding behind the car that was about 30 feet away, but she was not answering me. I did not think it was a good idea to approach her or say anything else. Instead, I just got into my car and left. I drove home and then decided that I would not go back to that dollar store for a while, and I haven't been back since then. This was about 6 months ago. I've not seen the lady at all, and I'm hoping that I never see her again. When I was younger, I worked at a dollar store called Family Dollar. It was one of my first jobs, and I was 17 years old. I lived at home with my parents in a neighborhood close to work. I could get there by walking along a few sidewalks, and it took maybe 10 minutes. Since I didn't have a car, I usually walked to and from work. One time I worked until 9 at night. It had been a typical shift, and I clocked out and left. I began walking home along the quiet streets. The street in front of Family Dollar was busy during the day, but not at night. The roads behind the store were mostly residential and usually very quiet. We lived just a few blocks away. Normally, when I walked home, there was nobody else on the sidewalk. But on this night, a man was following me. I first noticed him about 2 minutes into the walk. I heard footsteps behind me and looked over my shoulder. I saw a man walking, and I recognized him. He had been in the dollar store earlier in the day and came to my register. This was about 5 hours earlier, and I hadn't seen him since. This seemed strange to me. I kept walking, and when I turned down another street, he followed me. I started to get nervous. I wasn't far from home, but this was becoming a problem. Soon I reached my street. I turned down it and hoped the man wouldn't follow, but he did. I couldn't go to my house, so I went to the end of the street and then headed for the street behind my house. The man followed me the whole way. After walking down that street, I quickly turned a corner. The man wasn't right behind me, so it would take him about 20 seconds to reach the corner and see me. In that short time, I ran into a neighbor's yard and cut through their backyard. After going behind their house, I cut through a couple more yards and then into my backyard. I quickly went around to my house and went inside. I was out of breath and my heart was racing, but I felt much better now that I was safe. I watched out the front windows to see if the man would walk past, and to my surprise, I did see him walking down the street. I didn't think it was a coincidence. Luckily, he didn't go into our yard, so I was confident he didn't know where I lived. I told my parents, and they said I should drive to work next time. My mom didn't need her car during my next shift and said I could use it. Even though it would take less than a minute to drive there, I did. The next time I worked was 2 days later. I once again worked a shift that ended around 9 at night. During that time, I was working as a cashier, and a few hours into the shift, everything was pretty quiet. I happened to look over and notice the man who had followed me home entering the store. When I saw him, I got really nervous. I didn't know what he was going to do. The man went into a random aisle and then out of my sight. I was dreading having to ring him up. I tried to ignore it and think about other things, but after a while I noticed the man leaving. He didn't buy anything and didn't check out. I felt relieved. For the rest of my shift, I didn't see him. That night, when I got off work, I went to my mom's car in the parking lot. When I got inside, I started the engine and began leaving. As I was driving out of the parking lot, I saw the lights of another car turn on, and it started to leave. Instantly, I got paranoid and worried it was the same man. When I took a left and headed to my street, the car behind me also took a left. I drove to my street and turned onto it, and so did the car behind me. I just knew it was the same guy. I drove past my house and went to the street behind me. This time I left that street and started driving to find the local police station. I had to look up directions but made it there within about 10 minutes. When I pulled into the parking lot, the car behind me was still there but didn't pull in after me. I parked, went into the police station, and reported everything. Of course, I had no proof that the person in the car behind me was the same man, but I had more than a hunch. I also didn't get the license plate because I couldn't see it in the dark, but I hoped the police could do something. I didn't want to be followed home from work again. After speaking with the police, I called my parents and told them what had happened. Then, I went home. The next time I worked, I was really worried that I would be followed again or see the man. I knew to call the police if I noticed him. When I got to work, I told my coworker about the story. Surprisingly, my coworker Tori seemed to know the man I was talking about. Tori was older than me and worked at the dollar store full-time. When I described the man, she said it sounded like a guy she kind of knew. She told me he was a creep and had a mutual friend with her. After work that night, I was extremely careful and looked all around. Tori even walked me to my car, and luckily, I was not followed home. The next time I worked was several nights later. When I got to work, Tori was working too. She told me that the man she knew, who sounded like the same man who had followed me, had been arrested. She said that apparently he was driving with drugs in his car and led the police on a chase. When I saw a picture of him, I confirmed that it was the same man. It was a huge relief. I went to the police after work and told them it was the same guy who had followed me. This was a long time ago, but I will never forget it. I only worked at Family Dollar for a few months and then quit. Looking back, that was definitely the scariest thing to ever happen to me at work. This story happened just last week. It was a Saturday evening right before sunset. I went to the dollar store to get a couple of snacks. I had been there many times before. It was close to my apartment and everything inside cost around $1. I parked my car, got out, and went inside. As soon as I entered the first aisle, a man approached me. He was wearing a green shirt with a Dollar Tree logo. The man told me I wasn't allowed to be there. I was really confused because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. He insisted I leave and said I was banned from the store. I knew this couldn't be true. I'd never had any problems there. I told him he must have mistaken me for someone else, but he got angrier and threatened to call the police on me. I asked him what I did to get banned, but he wouldn't explain. He just kept telling me to leave and warned me not to argue with him. Feeling confused and not wanting trouble, I started walking out, and he followed me all the way outside. Once we were outside, he told me to leave the property. I asked one last time why I was banned, but he ignored me and warned me again not to be disrespectful. As I walked back to my car, I noticed a police car approaching on the road. The man suddenly ran away behind the Dollar Tree building toward other businesses. I stood there, even more confused now. The police car pulled into the parking lot, and 2 officers got out. One of them asked if I had seen the man who pretended to work at the store. That's when I realized he must have been a fake employee. I told the police where he had run, and one officer went after him while the other went inside. I spoke to a real employee and explained what had happened. She said the man had been causing trouble for other customers too, and that they had called the police when he refused to leave. After he disappeared from their view, he came back and harassed me. I finished my shopping, relieved that I wasn't really banned. By the time I left, the police had gone to find the man. It was a bizarre experience, one I won't forget.